Hi, everybody. Welcome to On the Block. I'm Ed Wilkinson, and today we're going to be talking with Father Vincent Chirachella, who is the pastor of Our Lady of Grace Parish in Gravesend, Brooklyn. Father Vincent, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah. You grew up in Williamsburg, and really you didn't have priesthood on your mind at first, right?
First, yeah.
Yeah, you went into a different field. Tell us a little bit about the job that you had before you became a priest.
Well, I went to Christ the King High School, and during high school in my senior year, my primary care doctor told my mom about the field of X-ray technology. And so I applied for that program, and it was over on Woodhaven Boulevard. And it was a great program, about 2 years. And then I graduated from there in 1988, a long time ago. And then from there, I worked at Mary Immaculate Hospital, which was a very busy hospital. I worked in the emergency room. I stood there about 6 months because it was so stressful working in the emergency room. From there, I went to the Kennedy Medical Center, which is still there.
At Kennedy Airport?
At Kennedy Airport, and I worked as the chief X-ray technologist there. And it was a very interesting job at the airport. You know, we dealt with, compensation cases, people that got injured in the airport, and even drug smugglers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever come up with any great findings there? Did you ever find people smuggling drugs into?
Oh, yes, many people, yeah.
And what happens to them at that point?
Well, they're arrested at that point, and then we had a big medical van where we would wait for them to pass the drugs from their intestines. It'd come out, and that would be the evidence.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was kind of, a very interesting part of it.
Yeah.
You know?
So how long were you in the medical field then, doing X-ray?
I was in the medical field about 10 years altogether, from 1988 to 1998.
Did you find it exciting, fulfilling, satisfying? Or?
Well, I think it really prepared me for priesthood in a lot of ways.
How so?
You know, being kind, being merciful, easing people, because most people, when they're in the hospital setting, they're afraid and they're anxious, and so I think it really did prepare me in many ways for the priesthood.
What was it like growing up in Williamsburg? You come from Our Lady of Mount Carmel Parish, and that's a very famous parish because everybody knows it for the Italian feast that occurs there every July, right? So what was that like? That was a very ethnic Italian neighborhood at the time, maybe less so now. But what was it like growing up there as a kid and being a member of Our Lady of Mount Carmel?
Well, I mean, it was great, It was, the feast is the center of the year for the parish. So the whole year was leading up to the feast and to the dancing of the Giglio and, devotion to Our Lady of Mount Carmel and St. Paolino di Nola. And so as a young boy, it made a big impression on me, this big event in the parish and the devotion to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which I still carry with me now. I'm a third order Carmelite, and I have a big devotion to Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And she really has helped me in so many ways under that title of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. But we had some great pastors there also, as I mentioned to you before. Monsignor Casado was there for 18 years. We had Father Fonti, we had Monsignor Calise, and now we have Monsignor Gigantiello.
Right.
So we're just so blessed with the pastors that we had. But growing up there was a great experience, really a faith-filled experience.
Did you participate in the feast as a kid? I mean, were you part of that chain gang?
I did. I was part of the rope gang.
Yeah?
I was a
Tell us what that means, the rope gang.
Well, the rope gang was supposed to protect the people while they danced the Giglio, to keep them away from the lifters.
Right.
So we would rope off the people.
Yeah.
And I was a pirate on the boat.
Yeah.
And I was eventually a lifter in my early 20s.
The lifter for the Giglio.
For the Giglio, yeah.
Yeah. Did you have to lift the boat too? I mean, is there an apprenticeship that goes along? This is a very, very complicated system.
It is complicated, yeah. Yeah, I began on the boat and then to the Giglio. So it was very, very a great experience for me.
Yeah. Why do people do that? I mean, because I see the guys, they get about 100 guys, get underneath that statue, which weighs about 4 tons or so, and then they lift it up into the air. And if you've never seen it, it's really quite an experience. Is there any religious reasons why people do that?
I think there is. I think the young men, they really love the church, and they love Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And they have a devotion to St. Paulino and to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and they do it for that. And they also do it as part of tradition. Their fathers did it, their uncles did it, and it's passed down, kind of a lineage thing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting neighborhood. I mean, but now it's changed a lot, and there's a lot of gentrification, a lot of new kinds of people coming in there. Do you go back to the old neighborhood? Do you see what it's like now?
I do. I mean, my mom's still living, thank God, and I go back every Sunday to see her. And though it has changed a lot, there's a lot of young people, a lot of life, and a great opportunity, I think, for the parish in ministering to those young people that are there, that are maybe Catholic.
Yeah. Have the Italians left, or is there still a core group of Italians there? What's the future of the feast?
Well, there are. I mean, a lot of them have moved to Long Island, a lot of the younger people in their 40s, 30s and 40s, Long Island, Staten Island, things like that. But they do come back for the feast. And the older Italians are still there, like my mom's age, in their 70s.
Did you ever think about becoming a priest when you were a young kid?
I did, yeah. I used to play priest when I was a
Everybody
kid.
did, yeah.
With me and my brother, we used to, play saying mass. But as I graduated high school and I became an X-ray technologist, it wasn't too much in my mind until I was around 25 years old. And then I had an experience of the call,
Yeah, we'll talk about that call a little bit, but as you were going through grammar school, did you have many sisters at that point, or were mostly lay teachers?
Yeah, we had the Josephites.
You had the Josephites?
Yeah, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, yeah.
And a lot of times, people say, well, nobody ever asked me if I wanted to be a priest. What was it like back then? Did they stress vocations in grammar school?
Well, the funny thing is, they asked my brother Michael to be a priest. Not me.
He's older than you, right?
He's 52, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's actually the one that they wanted. Father Sarnelli and Father Vivona came to the house to try to recruit him. But little did they know that I was actually the priest in the house. But he is becoming a deacon now, my brother.
Is that right?
He's in the program, yeah.
Now, why do you think he didn't respond to that invitation?
I don't think he was called to that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What did he do with his life?
He's married, he has 2 children, Jennifer and Michael, and he's a grandfather. And he worked for UPS, and now he is working in the city as a doorman, and he's going to school to be a deacon.
Yeah,
so.
and that's becoming a deacon, that's a number of years of preparation, and you've got to do a lot of studies, right?
5 years.
Yeah. So good luck to him.
Yeah, we're praying for him.
Yeah. All right, when we come back, then we're going to talk about that call then and the different road that you took.
Great.
Stay with us. We're coming right back with Father Vincent Chirachella. Hey, welcome back to On the Block. I'm Ed Wilkinson, talking today with Father Vincent Chirichella. So we talked a little bit about growing up in Williamsburg, and then you finally heard the call after 10 years as a medical technician doing X-rays. When people say, you heard the call, is that a voice that you hear? I mean, how does one hear a call?
Well, you hear it in the silence of your heart. That's the way I experienced it. It was a feeling that I had, that I experienced, and I tried to really run away from it from around...
A lot of guys do it, don't they?
Yeah. From around 25 till 28, I tried to avoid it. But one of the things I think that is very important is that it's a persistence. When a young man feels that persistence, that the Lord may be calling him, and it's over an extended period of time, it probably is something to be looked at.
When did you stop running, so to speak, and what did you do about it? Did you have to go talk to somebody to try to work this thing out?
Yeah, well, finally I went to my pastor, Monsignor Casado, and I said, you have to help me out here. This is driving me crazy. So we spoke for about an hour, and then he sent me to Father Mike Tadone, who was the vocation director at the time. I spoke to Father Tadone for over 2 hours. And then I went on interview here at Douglaston.
Yeah, we're shooting here in Douglaston today, and so this is a special place to you, right?
Oh yeah, this is where it all began. I came here on interview, and Monsignor Cisneros at the time, now Bishop Cisneros, was the rector. Monsignor Dietz, who has passed. Father Dennis Klein was here at the time, and it was really an interview lasted about 25 minutes, and then I was all nervous. Was I going to be accepted? And then finally I got the letter in the mail that I was accepted, and I was so happy.
Do you remember what they asked you?
They just asked me, similar to you, like what was it like, what was that calling like, and why do you want to be a priest, and questions like that. I don't remember all the details, but I remember being here and being in front of all of them,
So at that point, where did you have to enter the system? Did you have to go to college, or did you have enough college already?
Yeah, what I had was 2 years in radiology.
Okay.
And so I went to St. John's University for 2 years, hoping that they would take the credits from my radiology program. Unfortunately, they didn't, but St. Francis College did, and they gave me 30 credits. And I was able to graduate in 3 years instead of 4 with a bachelor's degree.
Okay. And were you living here at the time?
I was living here, yeah. I was 2 years I went with the seminary van off to college. And then the last year I drove myself to St. Francis.
Yeah. How different was that for you? Because you were out, you had a real job, you were making money, and all of a sudden you had to put the brakes on that. That's a big shift in lifestyle, and you go back to school.
And I had a science background, and my first course was medieval philosophy. Professor James Martin. And I had no idea what they were talking about, but I slowly got back into school, and by God's grace, I was on the dean's list at St. John's University. So I really did very well.
Yeah. So while you're studying at St. John's and you come back here, what's the communal life here then in the college seminary for you? You're a little older than the rest of the guys?
About 10 years older.
Yeah. I mean, has that become a problem, a barrier? Is there a gap between you and the other guys?
Actually, no, I enjoyed it. Yeah, they're some of my best friends now. Father James Caroli was here with me. Father Alonzo Cox. Father Peter Papora. So they're really some of my best friends, and all of them are younger than me.
So what happens after that then? You finish, you get your college degree, and it's time to move on. You've still got quite a period of another 5 years of preparation, right?
Yeah, well then we applied for the seminary in Huntington, and it was 5 years there. That was also a very good experience.
That was 4 years of study, and then you had a pastoral year.
A pastoral year at St. Ephraim's in Bay Ridge with Monsignor Peter Kane.
Right. Before we talk about that, how about the studies out in Huntington? Was that a rigorous program? Again, it's very it's very heady. It's theology, not a scientific thing.
Well, let's put it this way. My first semester, I wrote 15 papers.
Wow.
So it was a lot. They stressed academics a lot, but what was wonderful about Huntington was the priests that were there to support us. So we did get a good spiritual formation as well as a human formation, along with the academic formation.
Yeah. And going through it, what's it like to have the company of other guys? I mean, you need that camaraderie, I think, and that's where the fraternity and priesthood really begins. That's the seeds are planted right there, right? Tell me a little bit about the communal living in the seminary.
Well, I mean, it was great. We took classes together, we ate together, we prayed together, we socialized together. They're really, as I said before, some of my best friends now. My childhood friends, I'm still friendly with, but our commonality now is not the same as it was
Yeah.
when I was growing up in Williamsburg.
Were the kids that you grew up with in the neighborhood, were they surprised when they heard you were
Very
going?
surprised.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think they were surprised?
Because, I was just one of the guys in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
just, nobody would have thought that I would be a priest.
Did anybody try to discourage you and say you're nuts?
Never, no.
No, they were supportive.
They were very supportive.
Yeah. So then you get assigned to St. Ephraim's to do a pastoral year. Explain what that's like a little bit, because you don't want the seminarians to be isolated out there in Huntington. That can be a pretty far distance away from the diocese here. So you get assigned to do pastoral work for a year. What's that like? What do they let you do?
Well, it was great because Monsignor Kane was just wonderful. He was a great mentor. He's still a dear friend of mine today. I got very involved with the school, working with the children in the school. I got involved with, doing wakes, going to wake services, visiting the sick, serving Mass, and even practicing preaching. Monsignor allowed me to practice preaching. So he was just a wonderful mentor. And it was such a great experience that it only enforced that I wanted to be a priest even more. So I think the pastoral year is a very important thing.
They have dropped that from the schedule now. They've kind of substituted a different way of doing that. But you found that very helpful, huh?
Very helpful.
Does it, when you go in though, isn't it seem a little daunting? Like it's 5 years down the line now, But if you're going to be a doctor, you have to spend a lot of time in studies, But is that ever discouraging, the amount of time that it takes to be a priest?
For me, it wasn't. I enjoyed it. I guess maybe if you think about it beforehand, as I said, God's grace was always really operative in my studies, in my formation, in the call itself. So I was really tried to be open to God's grace. And really, as we mentioned, the camaraderie between the guys, it's so helpful.
You ever have any doubts while you were going through the seminary? Or?
I did.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I did, yeah.
It happens all the time, right?
It happens, yeah.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, and then we're going to talk about Ordination Day and some of the ministry that you've been doing. We've been talking with Father Vincent Chirichella. We're coming right back, so please stay with us. Okay, we're back on the block. I'm Ed, and this is Father Vinny, and we've been talking about your preparations for the priesthood. And let's talk about Ordination Day itself. What do you remember about that?
Feeling nervous.
Really? Yeah.
In the morning.
There must be a great sense of satisfaction, though. I finally made it after all these studies.
Yeah, there was a great sense of satisfaction having my family there. My mom was she's still with us now, and she was there, which was great. My uncle was there, my family, my classmates. So it was really one of the happiest days of my life.
Yeah. It's always a moment of great pride for a family, though, right? To say that we have a priest in the family.
It is. I mean, we have 4 priests in my family.
Is that right? Well, who else is a priest?
Father Jerry Despino, who's in Rockville Center. His brother Francis Despino, who's a Franciscan. And my cousin in Italy, Don Andrea Latagina, who's a priest. He works for Caritas in Rome. And also now my other cousin, Joseph Ciano, is starting the program here in the fall.
Oh.
So he may be the 5th.
So Ordination Day, was there a moment in the ceremony that stands out in your memory?
The moment that stands out for me in my memory is 2 moments. When we were laying down prostrate on the floor as they sang the Litany of the Saints. And then the second moment is when they turn us around with our vestments on and everybody applauds us for our accomplishment. It was really a tremendous moment in my life.
And it's kind of like at that moment, it's like the diocese is being presented with its new priests, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a very special moment.
It's
not just for
awesome.
you, but for the diocese,
Also, yes,
Yeah.
for the bishop and for the diocese.
And people applaud to show their approval, right?
Their approval, right.
Yeah. So you get your first assignment. The bishop gives you the assignment. Which bishop ordained you?
Bishop DiMarzio.
DiMarzio. Okay. So he gives you your first assignment. Where'd you go?
St. Luke's in Whitestone with Monsignor Tosi.
And what was that like for you?
It's a great parish, very active parish. I think currently they have like close to 600 kids in the school.
Wow.
So we had 5-6 funerals a week, over 150 baptisms a
As long as
year.
you have the baptisms to balance it out, you're okay.
So it was really great. The people were great. Monsignor taught me a lot. I learned a lot from him. He's a great priest.
Did you feel prepared for the priesthood, by the studies, by the pastoral work that you had done? Did you feel ready? I mean, I'm sure you wanted to get started and you were ready to get going, but did you feel prepared?
Yes and no. Because nobody can really prepare you fully for that ministry.
Yeah.
Standing before a family who just lost their mother or father, and what are the words that you say? And it really is the grace of holy orders, I think, that enables us to really stand in that place of Christ.
Yeah. Now you're a pastor. You have your own parish. You're in Gravesend, Brooklyn. It's an older part of Brooklyn, very established. At one time, Our Lady Grace was a very Italian parish. Is that still that way?
It's still that way, yeah. It's about 90% Italian Americans, but not, Italians that don't speak English. So they all speak English. They're, second, third generation Italian Americans. It's a wonderful parish. We have a school, an academy. We have about 180 children there, and very active, a lot of societies and groups. And it's really a very, very great place to be at this time.
Yeah. Has anything surprised you about being a priest?
Nobody ever relates to you the same way again.
Is that right? Yeah. How is it different?
Well, first of all, they call you father. That's different. I remember on the day of my ordination, I was coming out of the cathedral, and one of the seminarians was saying father, and I didn't turn around, and Father Fonte was there, and he said, "Don't worry, he doesn't know he's a father yet."
Do people in your family sometimes ask you, what should we call you?
Yeah, they do. But thank God for my mom and my brother and my niece, my nephew, my sister-in-law, my aunts and uncles, to them.
They keep you balanced a little bit?
They keep me balanced.
You don't want to get a big head.
No.
Where are the vocations going to come from? We hear a lot of things about Vocation Crisis now, and Bishop DiMarzio always wants to say that people are still being called, but they're not responding in as great a numbers. What's going on here?
I think there's a crisis in the family. My vocation really came from my parents and their love for the church, their love for Christ. My mom took me to church every week. I was an altar server. I went to Catholic school. There was a Catholic identity. We had the sisters in school. I had the example of those wonderful priests I told you about. So I think it has to be in the family. The parents have a great responsibility to, not force their children to be priests or religious sisters, but to at least give them a Catholic upbringing.
At least bring up the idea, ask them at some point, right? Yeah. What would you say to you if a young man came to you and said, Father Chirichella, I'm thinking that maybe I'd like to be a priest? What would you say to them?
I would say go for it. It's a wonderful life, a life filled with joy, a life filled with great opportunities to help people, and also a life that sometimes challenges you, in many ways, and stretches you. And it was the same way for those first followers of the Lord, wasn't it? They were stretched in many ways.
Yeah, they had no idea what they were getting into.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I guess there are things today that still surprise you, and you say, how did I get into all this, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I have to say, every day I get up and I don't feel like I'm going to work.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say. If you enjoy doing what you're doing, you're never going to work a day in your life, right?
So that's what I would tell a young man. Really just think about it, pray about it. If it's persistent, if it's something that doesn't go away, go speak to your pastor, have a conversation with him, and take it from there, really.
Yeah. Are the vocations still coming from the Italian community? At one time, we had a lot of Italian priests. Are they still coming for the Italian community?
Not as much. Not as much, yeah. As I said, I think the family unit has to be the focus. The mother and father are the first church. They have a great responsibility to their parents, to their children, really raise them in the faith.
Sure. Great talking to you, Father. Great story that you have from Williamsburg to Gravesend now. So thanks for being with us, and thank you for being with us. And I hope you'll join us again next time here on The Block.